In this demo, I want to show you the benefit of using the quick selection tool. So I'm going to go to File and Open, and in my Chapter 6, down here, let me find it, Chapter 6, Folder 1, I have these 3 files. So I'm going to open up all 3. Right there. And what I want to do is take and cut out this kid and put him in front of this background. Then, to show you how to use your preserved transparency, I want to show you how to recolor a logo really quickly. So first, I want to cut out this picture. So if I zoom in, luckily, when I took this picture, I knew that I wanted to cut him out. So I purposely photographed him against a dark background. Light colored foreground figures in front of a dark background are easier to extract here in Photoshop. Since he has a lot of color, I'm going to go to my quick selection tool, and notice how it has a plus on it because it's going to quickly add colors as I click and drag on them. So what I want to do is keep this all inside the boundaries of the kid. I don't want to hit the background. So I'm just going to go in his little cap here, click and drag. Then I'll click and drag down his face. There, by the time I reach his nose, it jumped way down to his jawline. I'll skim the back of his head right there for a little bit of the dark hair, the back of his neck. And then I'm going to go down through all the stripes in the shirt. Click and drag through all those stripes. Down through his hand. Down the back side right here. Through all these little stripes and down into the red. And if anything, this worked too well. So notice as I came down into the hand, it jumped into this guy's face back here because skin tone was touching skin tone. So if you use the quick selection tool and it jumps too far out away from the edge of the figure, take your quick selection and hold Alt or Option key for the minus and scrape off that mistake area right there. I wasn't trying to select this guy's face. I can come over here, hold Option key and scrape off that little fold right down there. Hold Option and scrape it off of his mom's face right there. Hold Option and scrape it out of her mouth because it jumped out there. If I didn't get enough, I'll just click and drag and kind of skim that edge right there, and that's going to look pretty good. Okay, I can zoom back out by taking my zoom tool, drag to the left to zoom left or right, left to zoom out, right to zoom in. So I've got a pretty good selection around this kid, but I'm not sure if this is going to be perfect. So what I want to do is a visual test. I'm going to stay on my selection tool. That is the trick. You can't deviate from it. If you're testing out a selection, you have to stay on your selection tool. And right up here, I have a button called Select and Mask. So I'm going to click that. And then right over here, it asks me how I want to view my file. And since I know I'm going to add him to a dark colored background, I'm going to view him on black. Okay, I click right above. That gets rid of that pop-up list. If I can still see the background, that's the opacity. So I'll drag it over to the right to block out the background. And that's what he looks like on a black background. Edge detection is for loose kind of flyaway hairs, and we really don't have any of that. What I do have is some edges and I want to clean up. So I usually drag my feather over to the right a little bit. That softens things. If you're cutting out a figure, you don't want pieces of the background showing. So I always shift the edge to the left to about -7 or 8%. That just allows Photoshop to slightly cut into the edge of the figure. Feathering gives it a softer edge. Contrast gives it a harder edge. So I kind of combine these two, feather and contrast, until I get a nice smooth look around this kid. All I'm going to do here at the bottom is click Decontaminate Colors. Want to make sure there's no weird colors around the side. and I'm going to output to a new layer with a layer mask. So I click OK. This is showing me what he looks like cut out from that background. Now here is the key that you got to be aware. There is a glitch here in Photoshop. When you use select and mask and you have a layer mask right here, there is typically going to be a little white edge of pixels left around the outer edge of your photo. Okay, and I don't want those showing up in my final file. So what I always tell people is click on the right on your layer mask, D for default colors, X to switch to black, and then I'm going to take my paintbrush, and I want to paint with a solid brush, so I'm going to hold Control and Option and come down, hold Control and Option and go to the left, and I'm just going to scrape. I'm clicking and dragging right along the edges to scrape away any leftover white pixels. Just scrape off those whites. And you don't see it on the screen, but trust me, after using Photoshop for years, those little white pixels are there. So you want to scrape them away, okay, by painting with black on your layer mask. Once you are done with the layer mask, you click on it once so it has a white frame around it. Click on the trash can and apply. Apply means permanently delete the background, the layer mask. So now with my move tool, I can drag him up, wait a second, drop him in, and I'm going to put his bottom edge right off the edge of the poster right there. But I don't want the top of his head dipping underneath my type, so we're just going to move his layer up to kind of have that little overlap. And I want this kid to look darker. He looks way too bright to be in this dark scene. So whenever I want to adjust my values, it's Image menu, Adjustments, Levels. Okay, this is again going to read 3 values. Your shadows on the left, your dark values, your midtones in the middle, like skin, and your highlights on the right, your bright areas. Well, this photo has a lot of area of highlights. It's all kind of clumped over here on the right. So this is telling me there's a lot of bright values, and that's true. There's almost no darks over here. So you're going to take this slider on the top, drag it to the right, and when you let go, you'll see the result. So I always drag it a little bit and let go, a little bit more and let go, a little bit more. Okay, I don't want my darkest dark being too dark. I'll drag the middle slider to the right. That just tones down his skin tones a little bit, kind of gets him to fit better in this scene. And I click OK. What I also want to do is add a glow around the edge of this figure. So to the right of any layer over here, you can double click, and that brings up your layer styles. Okay, what you do here is you find the name of the style you want, like an outer glow, and you do not click the checkbox right there. Because all that's going to do is activate the glow, but you can't change it over here. Okay, so what I always tell people is you click on the name of the effect. And by default, this is the color. It should be set to white. This is the blending mode. It should be set to screen. That is your typical default outer glow. Okay, white outer glow with a screen mode. The opacity might be a little lower here, so I just drag it over to the right to about 90%. If I'm using it, I want people to see it. And your default is white, but I don't want this kid to glow white. I want this poster to have a darker, heavier feel. So I want the color of my outer glow right here to be black, not the default of white. If I click on this and I come all the way down into black, it's actually going to disappear. Okay, so what you have to keep in mind is even layer styles have blending modes. And like I showed you before, black in screen mode will become invisible. Screen mode works great for white, not black. So if I'm using a dark color, I'll set it to these darker ones, multiply. And now I can see that black kind of glow effect around the edge of this kid. I can change the spread, which goes out from the edges. I can change the size, which is the blurriness of that glow, depending on how much you really want people to see. Just a little bit of an edge right there, and I click OK. Okay, the last thing I want to do is add this logo. Okay, so with my move tool, I'm just going to move it on up to file number 2, wait a second, and drop it in this big blank space right here. And notice we can barely even see that logo because the background is so dark. Well, if I turned off these 3 layers, this logo is on a big blank layer. Imagine this is printed on a big sheet of glass. What I want to do is recolor the logo, not the sheet of glass itself, just the artwork that already sits here. So the problem is if I took a paintbrush and I selected a shade of, let's say, yellow, if I were to paint, I'm going to get paint all over that layer. And that's going to ruin my file. So I go to Edit and I undo that, obviously. What I've done is I've created a layer that's 95% transparent. I just have a little bit of artwork right here on this layer. Above your layers, right underneath your blending modes, is a lock feature. And the first button right next to the word lock is a checkerboard pattern. It says lock transparent pixels. When I click that, I will never be able to paint anywhere I see a checkerboard pattern. I have locked and protected all the transparent or blank parts of this layer. So now when I click and drag and paint, nothing will happen until I hit my logo. Turn them back on, and now we can read it. So right up here, next to my color panel in the upper right is my swatches. If I clicked on RGB and I clicked on red, I can try to fill in this entire layer by hitting Option and Delete, or Alt and Backspace on a PC. If I clicked yellow, Option and Delete, green, Option and Delete, cyan, Option and Delete, and you get the idea. I'm going to come back to yellow, Option and Delete. And I can even zoom in and hand paint certain areas because the entire logo gets filled with that one color. But let's say I want the word demo pics to be in white. I can click here, select a shade of white, and with my paintbrush being a small hard brush, I can just skim over the letters right here and just paint those letters white. There we go. Okay, so that's how you deal with layer styles. You double click to the right. Anytime you're in the layer styles, always click on the name, not the checkbox, because when you click the name, all your buttons over here are going to change. So you can change the appearance of your styles. Make sure you understand blending modes because even layer styles have blending modes. We've used the outer glow. I showed you locking the transparency of a layer. Option and Delete to fill a layer. So you got a lot out of this quick little demo. I'm going to close this first file after cutting them out. I don't need that. I'm going to close this logo. Don't need that. This is the file I'm going to turn in. So you can name it Pixel Place, last name, first name, Pixel Place, and save it as a JPEG to hand in to me. I'll see you in the next video.